We're going to start today's session with Piyush Kharbanda, General Partner at Vertex Ventures, and we're going to discuss Vertex and Piyush's AI investment thesis. We've been having, for those of you who are following this series for a long time, just as the AI conversation has been, accelerating a couple of years back, and more action started kicking in gear. With that action, there was a lot of confusion. So we started doing these conversations, AI investment thesis conversations with our investor guests, and started, clearing some of that confusions up, and really trying to understand what is happening in the market, what are people seeing, what am I seeing, what conclusions are we drawing. So welcome, Piyush. It's great to have you. If you want to start by just introducing a little bit about Vertex. We've had your partners here before. Ben has been here before. So, but let's reintroduce and then dive into the AI conversation.
Awesome, that's great, and super excited to be here. Let me give everyone a quick background to who we are, what we do, and we can pick it up from there. Vertex is a fairly global venture capital setup. We were born out of Asia, particularly Singapore, many years ago. And as large organizations and old organizations, we've gone through a bunch of changes over the last few years. Um, in our most recent avatar, we sort of act as a network of funds across the world. So we have a team in the US, we have a team in Israel, we have a team in China, and Ben, who you've met, and I and our colleagues are a part of the Southeast Asia and India Fund.
Mhm.
Our fund is a $540 million fund. We raise capital from third-party investors, but the sovereign fund of Singapore, which is Temasek, is an anchor in our funds.
Mhm.
Um, our thesis sort of is to invest, like I said, in Southeast Asia and India, but we are sort of not only investing in our local markets, but also investing in software startups that are globally relevant. Um, and this is, so my focus remains India, and a large part of what I do and where I invest is the India to US leg or India to global leg, where folks are building high quality software in India and selling it globally. Um, and that sort of is very relevant to what we're going to discuss, which is how AI plays a part in sort of creating an upheaval in that market. Uh, and it's been a pretty rapid upheaval, and we are sort of going through it as we speak. Um, so that's about us, but we're not just software investors. We actively invest in the local market. So the Indian consumer, Indian financial services space is a big area of what we do, etc. So fairly horizontal. We also, from a thesis perspective, are more a Series A investor,
Mhm.
and that's sort of also been an evolution. So we are among the earliest investors on the cap table, but probably not the first in many cases. And in many cases, we are the first as well. But that's a quick background. Personally, I've been here for about 9 years now, and I've been investing for about 14 years. I used to work with a private equity firm before this. Indian mid-market private equity is very different from what you know in the West.
Mhm.
So I used to be with an Indian mid-market private equity fund for about 5 years before moving into venture.
And when you say you write the Series A checks, what are you looking for in the ventures where that you're willing to come in and at the Series A
Yeah,
level? And let's start with your specialty, which is the B2B SaaS worldwide um,
yeah.
get area.
Yeah. It's a very nebulous definition, and in today's world, this definition is changing so rapidly because startups are finding scale before organization. You'll see startups that are millions of dollars in revenues in 7 8 months, and in the earlier days when we were investing in SaaS, 7 8 million means going through a bunch of hoops and building resilience within the organization. It would take time, it would take a lot of pushes and pulls and failures to get there. And so you're looking at a mature organization at that scale, or even at a 3 million scale, or like $5 million scale. That's completely changed today, right? We are seeing revenue traction much faster than we are seeing maturity. But to go back to your question, what we are looking for starts probably with founder market fit and sort of how well aware the founders are of a given market, how in tune they are in solving for a problem that they've identified. And in some ways, we are trying to see and look for early signals of product market fit. And especially in SaaS, we are trying to look for signals which are repeatable sales motion, repeatable problem solution fitment,
Yeah.
repeatable ability of founder to go and do sort of early stage non-scalable things that they're sort of percolating through the organization and trying to make that scalable. So like I said, early signals of product market fit. Sometimes they're defined by revenue, sometimes they're not. And I hate to sort of give revenue ideas around product market fit because it completely varies by industry, domain, segment, etc.
Okay. Um, but you are doing Series A without revenue? Is that?
No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't.
I don't think so. Yeah.
We wouldn't do like I know folks would do Series A without revenue. We wouldn't.
Yeah. But by and large, I think it's actually not a bad thing not to do Series A without revenue, because Series A also has moved, right? The size of Series A has moved, the stage of Series A has moved. So I think putting in a large amount of money without understanding what is the business, what is the sales cycle, what are the parameters of the business, it's not a smart idea, because then you end up with these companies that don't grow fast and end up in this twilight zone. They have venture money, but they're not growing exponentially, and that means they're not going to raise another round of financing, but they're stuck in this weird place, right? So it's not very
Right.
good
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
invest in unvalidated ventures. So let's go back to your starting comments about the trends of startups coming into Series A with a lot of revenue. Is that something that you're actually seeing in your deal flow?
It's sporadic. Okay, so I need to qualify this a little bit. We invest specifically on the India global leg,
Yeah.
and so the trends that you see in the West are a little bit are somewhat muted when it comes to what we see here and somewhat delayed. So in our deal flow, it's not as much as what I hear from my friends who invest in the US directly, like US startups.
Hmm.
Uh, but we are starting to see faster than before revenue traction
Yeah.
and
Yes,
revenue growth.
that is a very fair point. There is this company in Stockholm that is growing incredibly fast, Lovable. And there's a bunch of others here in the US that are growing very fast, and that is creating, I say VCs are salivating for deals like this right now.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
the reason I'm probing it with you is that how much of this is showing up in the Indian VCs pipelines? Is this real?
It's still early, but it is fairly real.
Yeah. And when you see these deals that are starting to find some velocity early on and coming to you with that as one of the proof points, what are you seeing? Is it, what kind of go-to-markets are you seeing that are giving them this kind of velocity? I understand that it takes fewer people to build software right now because of all these AI co-pilots and this and that. So yes, at the product building part, the MVP building part, the actual product building part, there has been a lot of efficiency that have come on the wings of AI. But what are you seeing in the go-to-market motions in the Indian companies that are finding some velocity as they come to you in your
Yeah.
pipeline?
Yeah, I think there are, and I'd sort of generalize this because we have to invest in companies that are sort of globally relevant. So you have to look at companies that are doing this in the US or in Europe, for example, as well.
Yeah.
Uh, in general, what we're seeing is that these companies have a very high quality, sort of better than MVP that is early into the market
Mm-hmm.
and sort of gains um, enterprise virality in that the product is is significantly better at solving specific problems that these companies have faced and have not had the ability to solve. Let me give you a few examples, right?
Yeah, great.
If you think about voice applications in clinics,
Mm-hmm.
or or a provider to a payer interaction where there is a bunch of back and forth that happens on calls between a provider and a payer.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these problems had not been addressed at all. So if you are if you are providing care under as an ACO, as an as a care operator, you have really not been able to call your patients. Or if you have a claim as a provider and this claim has been disputed by the payer, you've really not been able to get on a phone and sort of explain and provide all the details and documentation.
Mm-hmm.
With a bunch of these new voice AI applications, you're starting to see immense traction on these problems that were earlier than now not addressed at all, or were being done in a very unscientific manner. And now, when you launch these kind of applications, the uplift that a small business or a large business doesn't matter, the uplift that they get in terms of their overall business problems and their own solutions is just so dramatic that the traction is just going to go through the roof. Now, the question that we often end up asking from a framework perspective is, how sustainable is this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a flash in the pan? Are there incumbents who will come and eat up your cake and launch a product or an adjacent product from their distribution strength that will sort of uh, take away all the advantage that you have in being early in the market?
Mm-hmm.
Because in each of these segments, there are incumbents.
Yeah.
Uh, and in many cases, the early leadership could be pretty ephemeral. And we saw this uh, specifically in the medical transcription space,
Mm-hmm.
where we saw a bunch of companies sort of go very early into the market for medical transcription in clinics. And then the incumbents with their, sort of regulatory uh, edge and their distribution edge were able to come in and sort of get either partnerships built with a bridge and Epic is one, and then Nuance entered with their own product. And then the early incumbents were sort of left,
Hanging.
you know, yeah, clutching at straws. And so just to round it all up, right? The overall thing here is the same as it was in software investing, which is to identify what's the long-term sustainable moat.
Yeah.
And often enough, the answer lies in founder market fit and founder resilience and the ability
Domain
to
knowledge.
execute.
Deep domain knowledge is where a lot of those exit barriers come from, right?
I'm not so sure yet. I'm not so sure. Deep domain knowledge is something that actually incumbents bring to the table in a
As
lot
well.
more deeper manner than startups do. And so you're right to some extent that domain knowledge is extremely relevant, but I don't think that's the unique, that's a unique defining factor.
I think it depends on the application really and the use
Sector,
case.
stage, absolutely.
So
Like,
the domain, if there is domain specific insight that brings in a lot of integration into the surrounding technologies and so on and so forth that the incumbents do not really have. There is, there are real insights that you're doing something differently than what the existing market is capable of doing. That's where the differentiation comes from and the moat comes from. But if it's highly replaceable software, somebody is not doing it today, but it will do that. Somebody who's an incumbent with great distribution capabilities does it in 6 months, you're basically gone.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, it's like we have not seen in the past innovation cycles incumbents innovate at the pace at which we are seeing incumbents innovate today.
Mm-hmm.
That is a statement of fact that we now live by in how we evaluate startups.
Yes. Yes, I have to
And
agree with that. You know, the other, if you look at the enterprise software ecosystem, there are these big stacks already in there. And these guys have the ability to go in and stick agents into these stacks with deep integrations here, there, and everywhere, across use cases, etc. If you're not an incumbent, having that level of leverage is not going to be so easy.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, Having said that, that also comes with its own disadvantages. So I'm not saying that I will not invest in any startups that are going to take on an incumbent, because the incumbents themselves have their own problems. They're, they need to refactor a bunch of culture and code, and both go hand in hand. And that's not going to be easy.
Right. It's all built on old architecture, right? It's on pre-AI
Absolutely.
architecture. So the whole stack
Let me
is
give
built on
you
pre-AI architecture.
let me give you a very simple example. If you think about call routing, right?
Yeah.
Call routing is a technology that I did an internship in 2006, and that behemoth of a tech stack has been built over many, many years.
Yeah.
And now you could just put an agent to route calls without any of that logic built in. Now,
Yes.
would the incumbents that have millions of dollars of revenue coming on the back of that technology stack and that differentiation, would they be able to rip it out and replace it with a bunch of agents that are very well configured to work together? I don't know. Uh, but I would bet that many of them won't be able to.
So, Piyush, what have you invested in that has passed all these diligence tests
Yeah.
and emerged as okay, this looks like it could stand on its own without
Yeah.
getting blindsided?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just give you our framework and our thinking around how we invest in AI and AI applications, right? So if you look at the basic rudimentary way of thinking about this, there's the model layer, there's the infrastructure layer, and the application layer, right?
Sure.
I think we are not carrying the bazooka to solve at the model layer. I think, and this is my personal opinion, the infrastructure layer is in a flux and will remain in a flux for a long time.
Mhm.
The way the model layer changes will have a very lasting impact on the infrastructure layer, and very little of what we see at the infrastructure layer today will be the standard in the near future. So we are not actively looking at that space right now, unless we find something which is extraordinary. Um, and that's not an active area of thinking. Where we are focusing a lot on is applications, and
Mhm.
specifically vertical applications. Till very recently, a large part of what we'd been doing was where vertical applications were augmenting humans. So a human in the loop led application. I'll
Mhm.
give you an example. One of the very recent investments we made was in a company called Hakimo.ai. They take uh, security as a service, so physical security as a service to small business owners across the US.
Mhm.
Um, and a classic example of what they do is they go to a car dealership and they say, we will put technology on any camera that you have, and we will augment it with a human in the loop. So if there is any sort of uh,
Break in or whatever.
incident, if there's any kind of an incident, we will run this through a stack of escalations, culminating in a human who will call the cops, right? So that's a human in the loop system, which not only solves a key problem, which had not been solved till now,
Mhm.
but also gives you an outcome where to a segment of users who are not ready to trust technology to do it end to end,
Okay.
right? Uh, So that's an example of what we've done. We've done something very similar in the construction industry, where there's a there's a there's an entity called an estimator when it comes to construction, and when it comes to sort of plumbing, HVAC, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have built, this company called Attentive has built a product called Beam that augments the workflow of this estimator by providing them estimates based off of drawings, where
Mm-hmm.
they would have spent hours getting an estimate, and these guys give a very highly accurate estimate using machine machine learning and AI. So
Okay.
it's not just necessarily just generative AI. There's a lot of traditional machine learning also at play in some of these applications.
Yeah.
And these are a couple of examples of what we've done. But to round it all off, vertical AI, as boring a sector, as much of human augmentation and replacement as possible, workflows that are not being touched by incumbents is a core thesis for us.
Interesting. I gave a talk this last weekend at Kellogg about Indian startups, past, present, and future. And the recording will be available soon. We'll publish it. You can take a look. One of the things I said is that, India has this background in the services industry, right? And the services industry came out of low-end services, BPO, et cetera, et cetera. But now with AI services, with human in the loop AI services, wherever there is a do it for me scenario, this is actually to India's advantage, especially if this services can be done from India.
Yeah.
So
I
I think,
I I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of VCs in the Valley are sort of sounding a death knell for the BPO industry. I think if the BPO industry, for instance, or the services industry does not um, innovate and partner with a bunch of these product platforms, they will struggle. But what we are very excited by is the fact that a bunch of new services companies will emerge out of it. And that's an area of interest for us as well.
it's going to be a different kind of BPO. It's going to be BPO.
Exactly.
It's going to be a higher end BPO. It's going to be human augmentation within that BPO
Yeah.
stack, and it's just going to be a different kind of services
Yeah.
industry.
And
There is a services industry that should
you'll
do very well.
you'll price on outcomes rather than on people, like on bodies, right? And I think that in itself is a large enough disruption to the BPO business model that many new players will emerge.
Yeah.
Just the business model disruption will cause a lot of opportunity for investors.
Yeah. Now, based on your portfolio and your colleagues in India portfolio, what are some of the best investments that have happened with this thesis?
Oh, but they're all in our portfolio. No, I'm kidding. Uh, the I do think that the writing is still super early, and we are excited about our AI portfolio. And I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna talk much about the market in general where we've not invested. There are some interesting companies out there, but we think that the revenue traction that some of our portfolio is getting, and we have a few portfolio companies in the AI-led, business process reengineering, SaaS, etc. space, uh, which are doing quite well and growing faster than anticipated. So we are pretty excited about all of our companies because the revenue traction opportunity right now is unlike, if you're AI led, is unlike even what the SaaS ecosystem saw in 2001 as well.
Oh, yeah,
So
definitely. But the market is much more ready to buy software right now, and there is real hunger in the enterprises for AI insertion in
absolutely,
their workflow.
even even in the mid market,
Hmm.
even in boring old vertical application in the mid market, there's an appetite to buy high
Hmm.
quality AI.
Yeah, definitely.
So we are pretty excited. We have a company called Certa where we did a Series B um, in 2024, later part of that. Uh, they are finding significant traction. They only sell to large enterprises, and they're finding significant traction as they've sort of retooled their entire application on the back of AI.
What is the product?
They do what is called third-party management, so TPRM, which is a category in itself. But with the help of AI, what they do is they help large enterprises onboard, manage, and work with vendors across use cases. So they'll work with a Boeing or a Pepsi or a Walmart and help them onboard and manage vendors, all their vendors across the world.
I see.
And this sort of becomes a system of record and a system of management for all these vendors.
I see. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go a little bit to a 30,000-foot level and ask you to comment on what else you're seeing in India that we should, keep in our vision in terms of trends or developments or concerns. What's going on?
Let me start with a little bit of concern that we run into as investors. I think this is exacerbated in the AI world a little bit more, is that there's a tendency to build Me Too products and applications
Mm-hmm.
and sort of, the fast follower approach uh, to building applications and so on. I think that's a little bit of a challenge for the ecosystem in general. Uh, it's been like this for a while. We've had sort of fast follower approach on application development.
India has always
Uh,
been fast forward. India has always been concept arbitrage.
I do think though that the concept arbitrage worked in a specific kind of a GTM. It doesn't necessarily work very well in the AI ecosystem, where capital is really not going to help create a moat or create any differentiation. So
Mm-hmm.
very small, lean startups without the need for it was it used to be a function of specific kind of GTM and much better quality of service. I think both of those are sort of getting disintermediated with AI.
Removed with AI, yeah.
Yeah, with AI. I think this approach is a little bit behind the times now. We'll
Mm-hmm.
still see high quality companies being built, but that's a little bit of mentality thing that we see. Uh, Not in every startup. I don't mean to sort of say that it is pervasive, but it exists. The interesting bit is that we are starting to see market leadership companies like companies that are first to market with products, and that's exciting. So, like we have Attentive, they're probably the first to market with AI for construction estimation.
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't anyone who's doing this. Uh, we have companies that are building AI first headless applications for specific industries, and those are very, very exciting. And they're going after incumbents with business models that incumbents can't challenge, which is outcome led, uh, very specifically focusing on revenue side problems that incumbents have not been able to address. So, that is the exciting part, and the other side of it is the challenge that we deal with.
Now, the company, an example like Attentive, that's a deep domain knowledge driven company, right?
It's a company that sort of listens to the customer, builds very fast, takes a product out to market, gets feedback, and iterates really rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what is needed. And if you're first to market in any segment, sector, etc., you need to work like that.
Yeah. And any insights? That's my last question before we switch to the entrepreneur pitches. Any insights on go-to-market motions that you're seeing that are working particularly well?
I do think that the AI SDR approach in certain markets is working. It is not necessarily so it's not necessarily a solved problem. A well-oiled SDR machinery might work better than an AI SDR. But for early stage startups, I think this whole AI SDR approach is sort of leveling the playing field. And if used well with high quality content, with well thought out ICPs, with well orchestrated sort of workflows on what to do, how to target, good oversight by a smart team member to sort of give good quality feedback, it can result in a very high quality top of the funnel. The other thing that's happening is that once this top of the funnel is generated, like you said earlier, the tendency to buy in both the mid-market and the enterprise is actually much higher than it's been before,
Right now,
especially if it's AI.
yeah,
And so it makes life easier.
yeah.
And so you don't necessarily need, and so what you're seeing as an outcome is that sales efficiency is higher than before.
Mm-hmm. You
So
know,
that's
the one that I'm watching with a lot of curiosity and excitement is what's happening where people are just putting something out there in the open source domains, and that becomes the lead magnet, and then you provide, premium software on top of that to, build the real revenue flow. That's been the commercial open source model for a long time. It has always been a very attractive model, but now with AI, that one is actually doing really, really well.
still early days in India, very early days in India.
Okay. We've seen a couple of, before AI actually, we've seen a couple
Oh,
of
yeah.
companies come out of India in that mode, but
Absolutely.
yes. Okay, good. So, very interesting conversation. I always say to all my guests here is that we need to check back in 6 months because things are
We
moving
should.
so fast and so
Oh my
much is
God.
happening.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.